My son said you can stay if you babysit. I changed the diaper, then changed the deed. They didn't know I funded that $1.50 home and could take it back with one call. I did not ask to stay. I was told to stay only if I babysit. Then came the words that shattered me. You are not even worth my child's diaper. I wasn't a ghost, not yet. I breathed. I held life in my hands. But in that moment I felt invisible. I froze mid-change, holding my granddaughter's tiny bottom in my wrinkled hands, while my daughter's voice cut through me like sharp glass. Finish that diaper and get out. This is my house, not a nursing home. She did not stop there. If you want to stay, you must do work. Babysit, clean, be quiet. This house does not house slackers. Those words echoed in the living room where my son's colleagues and friends sat chatting over wine. I felt the warmth of the room shift to cold disapproval. I lowered my gaze, too stunned to speak, and my granddaughter, barely 8, whose cheek I had just kissed, looked at me and mimicked her mother in a whisper. You are not really family, Grandma. It was the moment I felt transparent, evaporating. All the memories I carried, the warm breakfasts, the school projects, the lullabies, like dust in the sun. I retreated from the room slowly, the diaper still half-fastened. They heard the soft click of the door behind me, and I heard laughter rise again, clean and cruel. Tears didn't come. I poured a cup of tea, cold now because I left it on the counter, lit a single candle, and placed it next to a very small vanilla cake I had baked for myself that morning. The cake was modest, just enough for one. I set it gently on the small round table in the corner of the kitchen, beside a framed photograph of my late husband smiling at me, taken years ago when hope still lived in our home. I pulled a faded rose from a vase on that table, the only flower left from the arrangement we had for our wedding anniversary, and tucked it next to the cake. Then I lit the candle, the flame flickering, fragile, brave. I closed my eyes and wished for something simpler than forgiveness. I wished for acknowledgement. I took a deep breath. I thought of all the years I had given. Years teaching, years caring, years holding my family up with love they called convenience. In that hush I told myself, they don't know, not yet, that one call is all it would take. The thought was not bitter, it was certain. I had arranged everything 2 months ago when they thought I was too old to understand money. My name was still on the title, my savings were still untouched. And there was a lawyer ready to file the papers if I ever chose to. They had called me a freeloader, a burden, a babysitter. As I stared at the candle, I allowed myself a tiny, fierce smile. I blew it out, delicate, silent, and watched the darkness fill the room. Tonight they think I am invisible, but they do not know that I was never powerless. The cake sat there. The rose wilted slightly in the soft wax. And in that quiet kitchen I realized that I was not the one being defeated. I had been careful, patient, and now that patience was about to become justice. They do not know how powerful silence can be when a woman has been erased for too long. And they certainly do not know that with one call, everything they assumed would be theirs could vanish. They see a smiling grandmother with flour on her apron and a tired candle's glow. But I leave them that image deliberately, because they do not know I can take this house with a single phone call. I swore I could still feel the weight of that metal resting on my chest. Even now, decades later, I earned it under the flame of mortar fire. As the head nurse in a military field hospital, I held hands, guided breathing, and stitched wounds that no one wanted to see. I watched hundreds of soldiers cling to life because someone whispered encouragement or refused to leave them alone. I was honored with a medal, an acknowledgement from a government that I never mentioned to my son. I wore it only once in secret, tucked under my blouse. When my son was born, I placed that medal in a drawer and dedicated my life to raising him. I exchanged the trenches for his nursery, the field hospital for late-night feedings, the steady beat of combat for lullabies. I left behind a career built on missing a memo from a general or misplacing a sanitized gown. I gave it all up for bedtime stories, scraped knees, and school plays. I still believed it was one of the finest decisions of my life. But now, as I bend to line my granddaughter's diaper just so, I hear the words that hollow every effort I made. You left your career because you were weak, not because you sacrificed. You never made anything big. My son says it bluntly, eyes cold. And my daughter-in-law adds, if you were really that competent, you would have had your own place. You would not be here in my living room babysitting. It is the sort of cruelty delivered with casual indifference that leaves deeper scars than physical harm. I stand among the crates of his trophies, her designer bags, reminders that she values every accolade except the ones I earned, every plate I washed, every bowl of oatmeal I stirred at dawn, every whispered encouragement to her when she failed her exams. They are erased. My legacy, the home I helped shape, the love I poured into that child, they tell me none of it matters. They measure me by my presence now, by whether I am convenient or burdensome. It is the most perverse of ironies that the woman who saved hundreds is now called a liability. I replay that memory every morning, his small hand wrapped around my index finger as I changed his diaper in the glow of a hospital nightlight. I remember telling him that he was brave enough to believe in love. I never imagined those words would make me an inconvenience, and her words fester. You do not deserve your own space. This respite we give you is charity. Implicit in that, of course, is that I am charity. They never ask how it felt to slide off a battlefield and onto a cot for a newborn. They do not ask what it cost me, the education I abandoned, the promotions I never took, the colleagues who wondered why I gave it all up. My son walks past my photographs on the mantel, framed images of me in uniform, hands folded gently, face steady, as I comforted a wounded soldier. He does not glance at them anymore. One afternoon I asked him to pass me the milk from the fridge and he snapped, "I do not pay for milk so that you can hide behind it and complain about your old stories." He meant it. My husband, rest his soul, always said that history's worth lies in its telling, but theirs lie only in the forget. So I have learned to lean into silence, to let the dust settle atop my sacrifices. Yet I never truly left that service behind. I kept my diligence, my care, my principle burned into me. The same steady hands that held battlegrounds together now fold blankets and prepare baby bottles. The same voice that gave orders and comfort now reads fairy tales in a soft whisper. I adapt, I endure, but I never forget. Because when they pretend I did not exist except for convenience, they make me more resolved to prove that my worth is not in how useful I can be, but in who I was and still am. I watch the evening news through the kitchen window, the anchor talking about heroes. I feel a gravitational pull in my chest, not resentment, but a calm recognition that my story, these same quiet truths, deserve to be heard again. And soon quietly they will be. Every morning I wake before dawn. I carry cups of coffee to the kitchen and start the day washing dishes, wiping counters, stacking wood for the fireplace. By the time my son wakes, the house smells like oatmeal or fresh bread, and the laundry is neatly folded. I am everywhere, cooking, cleaning, folding, guiding my granddaughter with wordless patience, but never seen as who I am. I am treated as someone neutral, someone ornamental, someone assigned invisible labor. They never asked what I thought. Instead, they carefully redirected the conversation, so I was always behind the scenes. I wore aprons and soft shoes, not a seat at the table. I once waited to be invited to dinner and was told, "Mother, you must dress more tastefully for our company." Just a polite way of saying, "We do not want you here." I learned to choose long skirts over my old floral dresses, not because I found them indecent, but because I was made to feel they made me indecent. At a party for my daughter-in-law's promotion, the candles glowed bright, the champagne flowed, and guests asked for introductions. I stood beside someone I had taught to walk, taught to read. He looked at me awkwardly and asked aloud, "Is she the housekeeper or are?" My daughter-in-law laughed, not even allowing the question to breathe. "She's just Mother. She probably just dressed that way because she only owns thrift store clothes," she replied. No explanation, no correction. I think they assumed they knew who I was, but they chose to ignore it. I responded with a gentle nod and a half smile. It is astonishing how silence can be sharper than words. In that moment I saw something crack, not in their gratitude, but in mine. Years of refusal to claim airspace narrowed things too much. I recognized that I had accepted their false labels for too long. I remind myself of that evening as I fold my granddaughter's pajamas, how I did not speak when they needed me to help set the table, but feared I would overshadow their carefully curated self-picture. I stayed out of view just enough to blur out. I adored the life I was given once, but now it had become a burden to them. I sit now in a hallway just outside their living room, where laughter echoes, matching glasses clinked just a few feet away. That party, their smirk, the misrecognition they piled up inside me, years of brushing floors, wiping crumbs, reading bedtime stories they never ate.